All right. Well, last week we left Holy Mother in a conversation with Ramakrishna where he was asking her if he was drunk and how could he be drunk because he hadn't had any alcohol to drink. And he was testing her to see if she what her thoughts were. And she says, "No, no, you're drunk with the divine bliss." And so, as he often was, when he would go into samadhi or come out just slightly down, he would kind of stagger around like a drunkard, because he was just so inebriated with the thought of the divine, with that bliss that's natural to ourselves. And then Ramakrishna made the point, that modesty is her religion, and if she loses it, people will speak ill of her. So modesty was a foundational ideal of Thakur and Ma. Yeah, Holy Mother also says that a woman's glory is in her modesty. And then tonight, we're coming in a place where we're kind of summarizing now, actually. So we're on page 113 in Sri Sarada Devi and Her Divine Play by Swami Chetanananda. And we're at the last paragraph at the bottom of the page. It says, all sincere spiritual seekers covet ecstatic moods, spiritual visions, and samadhi, which is true. I mean, all of us, I imagine even some insincere folks would also like to have some of these experiences because they help validate our efforts. And, because we, in our delusion, trapped in our mind, in our small world of tightly selected thoughts, we sometimes feel like this is all it is, and that we need evidence for something bigger, something greater. It calcifies our vision, having this small mind and creating a small world of, I guess, well-vetted desires and lacking in any of our aversions. But we get severely limited, and we get trapped into these very normal, very low-grade mental cycles, and we can't see past them. And we begin to forget that everything that we experience in a day is amazing, that everyone that we look at is amazing. We just have stopped looking. We've stopped being interested. We've stopped questioning. We've stopped poking. And we've assumed that we've seen it all before. And so it has the audacity to become boring to us, something no longer interesting, which is really criminal on our part, because everything, I mean everything. Take a walk outside and pick up the first thing you look at and start thinking about it. Start seeing how much you know about it. And you become quickly aware of the presence of the divine. Everything leads to infinity. Vivekananda says that if you wanted to study the sand on a beach, you could take one grain of sand and study it for your entire life. And when you died, you still would not have answered all the questions that you were asking about that single grain of sand. And so we were hungry for this connection with God. We're hungry for some validation that we're not on a fool's errand. And by the grace of Mother, I think she many times is very kind and will give us a little bit of a taste in the beginning, sometime in the first couple of years of our practice. She'll do something for us that just gives you enough of a hint that there's something bigger, there's something greater, there's something wonderful, just beyond our understanding, just beyond our idea. And we go through inspiration with that. But even if that's not the case, if you're meditating on divine love, which is indicated by your mantra, by the name of God in your mantra, that itself will open you up inside to the storehouse of love that is you, that you carry with you within, that actually is animating you, inspiring you, and driving your life by presenting you with desires that are representative of things you love, and you then go and chase them. You go and try and acquire them. And that love, if you can stop making that pretense that it lies outside of yourself and that it's something you have to go chase and get, if you can set that aside and believe for a moment that all of the divine love in the universe lies within you and that it is accessible to you merely through a silent attention to your interior space. And so all spiritual seekers covet ecstatic moods, spiritual visions, and samadhi. They want to enjoy that blissful state. Holy Mother witnessed the Master's frequent samadhi and spiritual moods of his devotees, so it is quite natural that she wished to experience samadhi. She knew that the Master had the power to impart samadhi, but he did not encourage outer manifestations of spiritual feelings in Holy Mother. Another day, when she complained that she was not having ecstasy, the Master told her, "What will happen if you fall into ecstasy? Your clothes will fall off. You will cut capers. Who will look after your clothing?" During samadhi, the Master was completely oblivious of the external world and could not keep his clothes on his body. Moreover, Hriday and the disciples had to support him so that he wouldn't fall. Now, this idea of samadhi, we've had some conversations about it last week about, can a normal person survive samadhi? Can we have samadhi? And there's several levels of samadhi, depending on what teacher you're reading. There can be 8, there can be 10, there can be 5. I mean, there's all these different levels. So samadhi is not the same experience for everyone. There's a savikalpa samadhi that you have that's just before you maintain your sense of separateness. You maintain your sense of awareness of a self. You're kind of one step below, and you still experience this extreme ecstatic bliss and the presence of the divine and that love and that exists within that. And that's the level of samadhi that normal folk can attain to. The highest samadhi, that nirvikalpa samadhi, is actually losing yourself in oneness. So you completely merge with that divine state, and you're no longer witnessing. There's no longer a separateness for you to write down what you're experiencing. There is no experiencer. And so that highest state is the one that Ramakrishna says you can reach that. Very few people will ever reach that experience. Because for the ordinary person, there's no coming back from that experience. And so most teachers, unless they're an incarnation or one of the companions of an incarnation, unless there's something special about them, they won't have the power to pull themselves out of that union and reconstitute an ego and find their way back into the body again. So Thakur says that. Now, in spiritual life, there's always, how do I say this without ruining everything? It's in spiritual life, there's wiggle room for everything. So there are not many absolutes. Mother seems to not like absolutes. And when you start making absolutes about spiritual life, it seems from my studies of the divine, that Mother likes to put her toe across that line, and she'll do it just because you drew a line. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not going to say that there's only one way that samadhis manifest and that people experience them, and that's the way it is. If Mother wants one of you to have nirvikalpa samadhi and come back and tell the rest of us, she'll do it, and we can stand up and say, hey, that's against the rules. Thakur said, but the divine Mother is the divine Mother. She'll play as she plays and do as she does. But in general, the highest samadhi is a terminal state for most people. Well, terminal state for the body. It's just the beginning of spiritual life for everything else, but it's the end of the body. And those teachers, normal folks who are enlightened teachers that have an enlightenment experience, most likely are experiencing something like sarvikalpa samadhi, where they maintain the witness, they maintain that the separate self that has the experience of samadhi. And so just to clarify that a little bit, somebody had asked a question about that. All right, and so during samadhi, the master was completely oblivious of the external world and could not keep his clothes on his body. Moreover, Hriday and the disciples had to support him so that he would not fall. Yogan Ma recalled, "A few days after I became acquainted with Holy Mother, she said to me, 'Please tell the master that I would like to experience a little spiritual ecstasy. I don't find him alone to speak about this matter myself.'" Excuse me. The next day, I found the master seated alone on his cot. I bowed down and informed him of Holy Mother's wish. He listened, but remained silent and grave. When he was in a serious mood like that, no one dared to talk to him. I sat there silently for a while and then left after bowing down to him. Returning to the Nahabat, I found that Holy Mother was performing her daily worship. As I opened the door, I noticed she was laughing ecstatically, and she then began to cry profusely. Tears streamed from her eyes. This continued for a while. Then she became still and went into samadhi. I shut the door and I came away. After a long time, when I returned to her room, she asked, "Have you just come from the master's room?" I said, "Well, Mother, you say that you do not experience ecstasy." Abashed, the Holy Mother laughed. Afterward, from time to time, I used to spend the night in Dakshineshwar with Holy Mother. One night, someone was playing a flute. As Holy Mother listened, she went into an ecstatic mood and began to laugh off and on. I sat on the corner of her bed with great hesitation. I restrained myself from touching her in that state, as I was a householder. She regained her normal state after a long time. So you see this wonderful overwhelming of divine bliss. What a beautiful experience this would be, that we would sit in the divine presence of God and laugh ecstatically, just giggle, like you're I don't know, I used to giggle like that with my best friend and my roommate in college. In my first year of college, James and I, we we would just do these silly things and we would get in these laughing fits. And this is what it is to be in the company of the beloved. It's just ecstasy is that divine laughter, that divine joy, where you find all of your greatest struggles become hilarious to you. You understand how make-believe all of your suffering was and how unreal all of it was. And you realize that it had nothing to do with you. And the laughter comes a lot from your own self, from from the not being able to solve the riddle on your own, which from that perspective of samadhi, that divine union, it appears to you so obvious and so absurd, and then you have that infinite love just pouring in and out of you at the same time. And the tears, those tears of samadhi, the tears of bliss, always come from the outside corners of the eye. The fascinating thing that Swami once said to me, and I found to be true in our experience, that devotion brings tears to the outer corner of the eye. Suffering brings tears to the inner corner of the eye. And so in that samadhi, Mother sitting there weeping and laughing ecstatically, back and forth, and this is why it's so hard on the body, because the body is having this divine power just surging and present, and the bliss is overwhelming. So the body and mind get short-circuited. They literally kind of shut down. That's why that doctor could go and touch the whites of the master's eye to see when he was in samadhi, just to test it, and how he almost stopped breathing completely. You couldn't feel the breath going in and out of his mouth. And his body, was absolutely still. Sometimes couldn't even hardly detect a heartbeat in there. And in the Nirvikalpa Samadhi that Ramakrishna experienced under the teaching of his Gyani teacher, he couldn't. He was in Samadhi for 6 months. He laid on the ground. The caretakers had to roll him over to keep him from getting bed sores, and had to put milk and rice, push it into his mouth, and get him to swallow it. And so this is why he was saying, when Holy Mother was wanting it, she's like, well, what would you do? Who would take care of you? Who would preserve your modesty when you're completely unaware of your body, and of your place? And so he was a little hesitant, but then we see very kindly here that he gave her this experience in the privacy of her Nahabat, with her friends around, to be there with her.
So what are there's another type of samadhi, Swamiji, Nirvikalpa, and the other one?
Sarvikalpa.
Which one?
Sarvikalpa. I think it's Sarvikalpi, Sarvikalpa.
Any difference?
Anyway, yeah. If you want to look at it, I don't have the 8 or the 10. I go cross-eyed with that stuff pretty quick. But if you do a quick search online, there's any number of places where they'll give you the 10, they'll give you the 8, they'll give you all the different numbers. It depends on the tradition that's talking about it, and the teacher that's talking about it.
Okay.
So, yeah. Those things are nice. The reason I go cross-eyed on it is, it's a Christmas gift to you. Your samadhi is going to be a gift to you. And so just like you can have that nice big red bow package under the Christmas tree to sit and stare at for a month before you get to open it, just treat samadhi like that. It's not all that helpful to go and predefine, and because you won't understand in a real way those things anyway. If you could understand samadhi at this point, you would have samadhi at this point. And so see it as a gift that's coming your way. And that's a beautiful thing. But don't think about that, because thinking about samadhi is not what gives you samadhi. Thinking about the beloved is what brings you to samadhi. And so get lost in love. Wonder more about the nature of love, and find that love within, and spend your studies and your practice on that. And ask the mother for the rest. Say, Ma, you had samadhi after you asked for it and wanted it. Can I ask for it? I'm asking for it. Please let me have it. Right? But that's all personal. What's that? No questions? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Holy Mother later said, when I lived in Dakshineshwar, someone would play the flute at night. I thought it was God playing the flute. That sound would create such an intense longing for God that my mind would merge into samadhi. One day, Holy Mother was meditating when someone loudly called out to her. Her meditation broke and she cried out. The master rushed to the Nahabat when he heard this, and gradually Holy Mother became calm. The master said to others, when someone is in meditation, one should neither call nor make any noise near that person. Right. That's an important thing, very, especially if someone's really meditating deeply like that. But it's beautiful here. Again, you see the relationship with the master and the Divine Mother, that she's all the way out in the Nahabat and cries out like that from that start at being pulled out of a deep samadhi suddenly, or a deep meditation suddenly. And the master comes rushing out of his room, to check up on her, make sure everything's all right. So that he had to always have a bit of his awareness in that direction. That he really, you see how they take care of each other, how they're watching out for each other. That they are in each other's mind all the time, because they recognize God in each other. And so their practice, when they thought of God, it automatically included their partner. Swami Nikhilananda wrote, Sarada Devi did not outwardly practice austerities or observe rituals to the extent that Sri Ramakrishna did. Her life was one of quiet prayer and meditation, and she never neglected the performance of her daily duties. That's a big difference between Thakur and Ma. In Ma, it was her life itself that was her practice, her sadhana. It was her constant serving of the devotees, constant serving of the master, constant taking care of the women that were staying with her. That was her practice and her offering, and her manifestation. I mean, it was everything. I remember when I first got to Washington D.C. Yes, when I first got to Washington D.C., they were having a retreat weekend, and they asked me to do a little short talk on mother and renunciation. And I remember when I went and did my search online for Sri Sarada Devi and renunciation, I didn't get anything. Literally, the search came back empty. And so then I remember I searched for Sri Sarada Devi and chapatis. And then I found Mother's renunciation. All the stories that came up about her fixing chapatis for the devotees and doing it at late hours of the night and doing it on demand when there was no food around, and she would somehow get it and make it happen. Holy Mother's renunciation just looks to you and me like pure love. She was never too tired to take care of us. She was never too tired to provide, to get up and heartily prepare food, encourage, sit and listen. That this is the Divine Mother. Her practice is manifesting pure love to you and I as her children. Her life was one of quiet prayer, meditation. She never neglected the performance of her daily duties. She appeared to others more like a householder than a recluse or an ascetic. Yet the ocean of her spiritual experience was as bottomless as his. This shows that she was not just a saint or a mystic, but like her husband, a manifestation of divinity. You can see that just in the consistency of her life. There were no ups and downs. There was no moodiness. There was no one day this and next day that. Mother was always mother. Mother is always mother. I saw this in Swami Prabhupada too. I know that's a big space between them, but to see it in somebody is quite a fascinating thing, to see somebody who's actually living the things that we learn. With Swami Prabhupada, I lived with him for 12, 14 years. And I'm not joking when I tell people that not once did I see him do anything for his own enjoyment. I always knew if I needed him, there was only, I think, 3 places that I would look. It would either be his room, or it would be on the exercise bicycle, which I promise you was not enjoyable. But he would be there, or he would be in his office meeting with devotees or studying for his lectures. I never had to look anywhere else for him. And that was, I've shared in the past, for me, that was so utterly important, because I was so used to the hypocrisy of religious people that was a big hook for me, a big, trigger. And if I had seen anything in him that didn't ring true, I imagine that my mind would have used that as an excuse to let myself off the hook, to be like, I'm not going to do this, but it was the fact that here was somebody in front of me living a life for God that was unmistakable, a life where there was only God. There was no him there, no ego. Anytime he had to change his diet for the doctors, anytime he would, just getting on that exercise bike every day, he would get on there for 40 minutes. I say that because you have to understand, there is nothing worse than riding a stationary bicycle in a monastery. There's nothing worse. There is absolutely no entertainment whatsoever. I tried to do it one day because he suggested. He said, "Oh, see, it would be better for you to do the bike. That way you could stay in the monastery as opposed to going." I used to go on these 1 hour walks, all around out there. And he told me, "Oh, you should try and do the bicycle and see. It might be better." So I said, "Okay." So the next day I tried that bicycle. And I swear to you, if you want to know what eternity feels like, get on a stationary bike for 20 minutes. And you will see what eternity means. It goes on forever. But that's the kind of discipline that came naturally to Swamiji, to Swami Prabhupada, because of that relationship with God. And so we're seeing that. I mentioned that because that's just a real world example. Not that Mother isn't, but she's in a book and he was in my room. So that Holy Mother's life, she looked like a householder because she was doing and fixing and preparing for everybody all the time. She never neglected her duties. So you see, that also is the path. That also is a way of practice. That's when practice spills outside of the boundaries of your 1 or 2 or 3 hours a day, and it starts to become the way that you are. Life becomes practice. And that's the goal. We're trying to get there as soon as possible so that we don't compartmentalize our life. Oh, this is my worldly life. This is my spiritual life. This is my life at work. This is my life at church. This is my life at whatever. To not compartmentalize, but to be in the moment as a lover of the divine, in the presence of our love, all throughout the day. And that will cause us, or help us, to see that presence in everyone, so that our duty becomes service. Our duty becomes worship. Our chores become worship. Everything that we do becomes worship in that way. And these are the seeds of that samadhi, right? This self-control, being in charge of mind, being in charge of body, knowing the separateness, is what gives way to this experience. Sri Ramakrishna was fully aware of Sarada Devi's future. Referring to her one day, he said to a woman disciple, "She is Saraswati. She has assumed a human body to impart wisdom to men, but she has hidden her celestial beauty, lest people, by looking at her, should befoul their minds with sinful thought." Both before and after his death, the master often reminded her of her future role. He gave her detailed instructions about awakening the spiritual power of her future disciples. So there you have it directly from the master, that she was an incarnation of the Divine Mother, Saraswati in this case. The master trained Holy Mother to reveal the motherhood of God in this age. Her maternal instinct had already developed when she was very young, and she was endowed with purity and renunciation, love and devotion, unselfishness and compassion. Although she did not have any biological children, she saw all beings as her children, and she served them like a loving mother. She later said the master regarded all creatures as manifestations of the Divine Mother. He left me behind to give expression to this motherhood. And Vivekananda said that this was one of the most important gifts of India to the West, is this ideal of God as mother. The divine feminine, for us to balance ourselves out, for us to put more heart into our religion, into our spiritual life. One day, Holy Mother carried food to the master. He was lying on his bed in samadhi, but he looked so devoid of life that Holy Mother began to weep because she thought that he had left the body. She had long been worried about his health. Then she remembered he had once said to her that if she ever found him in this state, she was just to touch his feet, and that would bring him back. So she began to rub his feet. Rakal and the others heard her weeping and hurried into the room. They also began to rub him vigorously. This brought the master back to consciousness. He opened his eyes and asked with surprise what was wrong. When he realized their fears, he smiled and said, I was in the land of the white people. Their skin is white, their hearts are white, and they are simple and sincere. It is a very beautiful country. I think I shall go there. It'd be interesting to know where he was, which country he was. But it's also been very encouraging to me, that in the on this path in the Vedanta, to see a reassurance that you don't have to be of a particular race or a particular country or a particular upbringing to approach the master. And we all know that. I mean, we all know that, but it's wonderful when you see it like this. When you get a little bit of a poke saying, "Hey, yeah, I'm happy you're on board too. Come along, let's go." Holy Mother's companions in Dakshineshwar. A devotee called Pandi's wife was an elderly woman who was very fond of the master and the mother and lived nearby. Sometimes she supplied the milk for the master, and occasionally Holy Mother visited her in the afternoon and carried some cooked food to her. The mother often told Pandey's wife stories of her village. Once she said to her, "People in our part of the country quarrel and fight over their property. They haven't enough patience to settle their matters amicably. The possession of land and property is so temporary, and still they are so proud of their ownership. It is only a play for a few days. This body has a form, but the mind is boundless. It can be expanded like the vast space, but it is bound by Maya. People do not know this mystery of Maya, so they suffer and they inflict their suffering on others." So that's part of our constant discernment, just knowing the nonsense of ownership. We come in empty-handed and naked, and we go out empty-handed and burned. there's no carrying anything with you, And so always pay attention to that teaching, that this accumulation of things is only distraction. It only brings trouble. I remember, I think I shared this once before. I used to walk up on Broadway on an area called Billionaires Row in San Francisco. It was just one block up the hill from the temple. And by walking around those mansions, these big, beautiful, stunningly beautiful mansions, for many days, it occurred to me one day, I felt a desire arise for the first time. That never really was attractive to me. But one day it kind of came up in my mind with like, I wonder what it'd be like to have a house like this or to live here. And I got alarmed because I was like, oh God, that's all I need is another attachment. So I was sitting there. So I stopped and I made myself discern. I was like, okay, so let's say you have one of these homes. What does that mean? And I realized, look at all the people that are employed at this place to keep the gardens, to keep it clean, to take care of this vast interior space, and think of the amount of money I have to make, just to pay the taxes on this building. And I thought that means I would have to be head of some big corporation or have some big business or something to bring all this money in. And that would make me responsible for how many people's welfare and lifestyle, they're living. So if the company fails, 1,000 people lose their jobs, lose their homes, lose their families. It's like, as I started just summing up all of this, and I realized that I would have to have a faucet in the basement that just ran cash into a bucket continuously just to afford to have a house like that. And I thanked Mother that I had my room back at the monastery, that I didn't have thousands of people working for me that I had to be concerned and nervous about, that I didn't have to manage a staff of people to take care of my house and my yard and my cooking and cleaning and laundry, that I could come and go freely, as a free being. And that's the gift of spiritual life. That's that self, sufficiency, that it's you and God alone, nothing else necessary. And all the joys of life pale in comparison to a mature spiritual life. to a life where somebody has been sincere and earnest and has done their practice and done their work to calm the mind and to suss out the truth of these teachings, and to move into this space of God intoxication. Binodini Dasi, or Brinda, or Brindi, was a maidservant for the Dakshineshwar Kali temple. Brinda was a widow with no children, and her home was in Alambazar. She was very faithful to Rani Rasmani, who was the owner of the temple, and Mathur Nath Vishwas, Ramakrishna's first patron. One night, during Kali Puja, Mathur's wife, Jagadamba, lost her necklace in the crowd. Fortunately, Brinda found the necklace and returned it to Jagadamba. Although she was busy with her duties in the temple, she served Rasmani's family when they visited Dakshineshwar. Mathur and Jagadamba gave Brinda enough money to support her for the rest of her life. She served the master and the mother with great devotion. After the master's passing away, Brindi gave up her work in the Kali temple. Brinda later recalled, "I helped the mother with her household work in the Nahabat. There were not too many devotees at that time. I accompanied the mother to the temple and also on her visits to the neighbors. When she went to answer the call of nature at night in the jungle, I escorted her. She was extremely shy and did not talk to the men devotees. Once she had a terrible dysentery and frequently went to the bushes, but did not say anything to anyone. Seeing her condition, I told her, 'What is this, mother? Why did you not tell me about your physical condition?' I immediately went to the master and reported everything. He asked Hriday to call a doctor. Hriday brought a Kaviraj, an Ayurvedic doctor, and later 2 more doctors came to treat her. After recovering from her illness, she said to me, 'Brindi, you saved my life. May the Lord bless you.' I told her, 'Mother, from now on, if you are not well, just tell me. Then everything will be taken care of.' I served Holy Mother and received her blessing. She loved me very much. When I stayed with her for a long time, the master teased us. 'I see your conversations do not end. These days they are wonderful and joyful.' It was all the grace of the Divine Mother." Panchanani Dasi was called Jadu's mother. She was another maidservant for the Dakshineshwar temple. She was a young widow who lived in Karmarhati. Her son Jadu had died in an early age. Her duty was to wash the worship utensils used in the temple. Sometimes she stayed with the mother at night in the Nahabat. When the master's devotees began to arrive, Jadu's mother helped Holy Mother clean the dishes, the pots, and the pans. She recalls, "We belonged to a low caste. My duty was to clean the utensils of the temple. I noticed that many people bowed down to the master and the mother, and I had a desire to bow down to the mother and to touch her feet. But she was a Brahmin, and so I did not dare to touch her. But the mother fulfilled my desire. One day, while cutting vegetables, the mother cut her finger and it was bleeding. As soon as she saw me, she said, 'Jadu's mother, my finger has been cut. Please, quickly, bring a piece of torn cloth and bandage my finger.' I found a piece of cloth nearby and bandaged her finger. Then I bowed down and I touched her feet. The mother said, 'Your desire is fulfilled now.' I replied, 'What do you say, mother?' She said nothing and kept quiet. It seems she read my mind and she fulfilled my desire." That's a really big deal within its own context. It's hard for us to understand, but that was a beautiful interaction there. And it shows Mother's freedom, that she wasn't bound by all of the limiting social conditions of her culture at the time, but also she didn't make issue with them. You know, she obeyed those things, but when there was time to break them, for love, for service, she very readily did, very readily was able to do that. And that she knows your desires, that she knows what you long for, that she is intimate with you already, is what this teaches us, and that she is already preparing these fulfillments of your desire your spiritual desires. So you can know if it can happen for an untouchable maidservant at the temple who was her child, then you as her child will also get this. There was a Muslim community in Dakshineshwar, and some of its members would come to the Gazitala, a Muslim shrine located in the Dakshineshwar temple compound. Ramakrishna practiced Islamic sadhana there. Jahida Bibi was a poor Muslim woman who had no close relatives, but she raised an orphan boy named Sheikh Khatir, who was a distant relative. She survived by begging for alms. One day, she hadn't received anything, so she approached Holy Mother in the Nahabat for help. The mother gave her rice, vegetables, and a cloth. During the Muslim festival, the mother would send offerings to the Ghazi Tala. Holy Mother was fond of the Muslim children who came to the Nahabat for sweets. Another beautiful example of just an open heart. Because at that time, quite often, there would be no connection between the two. So it's wonderful to see our own ideal, embracing everyone, taking down these barriers. Because it's quite challenging these days with news and media giving us biased opinions. It's hard not to get caught up in those ideals, even if it's just subtly within. And so this is why our practice has to be louder than the media for us, has to be louder than the culture, has to be louder than the events going on around us. And this is why we struggle, is to find our safety within, to find our shrine so that we can stay there, be established there. A group of fishermen lived at Malpara in Dakshineshwar near the Deva Mandal Ghat. They would sing while catching fish in the Ganges at night, and in the morning they would sell the fish in the market. Their wives would sell fish from door to door. Kshanta Dasi, Patal Dasi, Chirot Dasi, Narayani Dasi, Padma Dasi, Golap Dasi, and other women used to sell fish in Dakshineshwar, Aryadaha, Kamarhati, and Alambazar. Patal Dasi recalled, "We used to go in a group to the temple ghat at Dakshineshwar to bathe. We then met the mother in the Nahabat and talked to her. I was young then. The whole Panchavati area was full of trees and bushes. In the beginning, the mother inquired about us, and later we became very close to her. We talked to her frankly about our homes, our husbands, our children, in-laws, and even our quarrels with our husbands. Once, Chirod was in a fight with her husband, and he pushed her to the ground. As a result, one of her teeth was broken. This made the mother angry, and she said how badly these men treat their wives. Without women, they cannot function, and yet they oppress their wives and show their brute force. Chirod, stop talking to your husband. Chirod, stop talking to your husband, but do all of your household duties. Serve food to your husband, but don't show your affection voluntarily. Let him think that everyone in this world is equally valuable." Chirod followed the mother's advice, and later her husband was remorseful and apologized to her. Once, Mokshananda's daughter had a bad fever, and the medicine of Kaviraj could not cure her. Before I go on, that's not an insignificant thing that just happened. This woman's husband abused her. And, contrary to quite often, I think we would say, oh, well, take it on the chin, and we would do that whole discernment thing around it to kind of get rid of it. But it's interesting that mother told her, no, you respond. You let him know that this is not okay. You put that distance between you so that he can understand that you have a value that should be respected as a person. And so this is something also to take to heart, that we do have a responsibility to stand up for ourselves and for others in the right way, not a violent way, but definitely we can in that story about the snake, we can hiss but not bite, so we can make it known that things need to be fixed or taken higher. We don't just suffer in silence necessarily. We can react like this. Once Mokshada's daughter had a bad fever, and the medicine of Kaviraj could not cure her. When the mother heard about it, she gave an offered flower to Mokshada and instructed her to place it on her daughter's head, which cured her. The mother asked about what we cooked at home, and we learned that she was fond of sajina, a kind of vegetable, bitter leaves of the patal plant, and kamranga, a kind of sour fruit. Yashoda would catch small fish and oysters. When the master was sick in Kasipur, the doctor prescribed oyster soup for him. We knew that the mother would hurt herself opening the oysters, so we helped her do that. Now, most of our companions are gone except Golapi and me. Golapi was quite young, so the mother was fond of her. The mother gave us sweets and fruits and invited us to attend kirtan or yatra in the temple. We were illiterate women and had no idea how great she was, but we felt she was the embodiment of compassion. The mother also gave clothes to us, vermilion and oil. Once, Chirod was possessed by a spirit. A Kaviraj, a sorcerer, and a Maulavi all tried, but could not get her any relief. Finally, the mother sent a bottle of oil and asked her to rub it all over her body. This cured her, but Chirod did not live long. At that time, the Charak fair, the last day of the Bengali year, was held in the fisherman's area. One of us brought a palm leaf fan for the mother, which made her very happy. She showed our small gift to others. It is not possible to forget the mother. And this is the beauty of this direct experience of the divine like this. We see these sweet things, and the spiritual practice of the mother, the spiritual power of the mother gets fed to us in these beautiful ways, these simple stories of just caring, being a compassionate, loving woman, and seeing everyone as her child, nurturing the whole world. What an ideal this is for us, for each one of us, to see everyone as our own children, our own relative, and to live accordingly. It's very challenging ideal. These unsophisticated women loved Holy Mother with innocent hearts, and the mother, she poured out her affection upon them. After the mother left Dakshineshwar, Golapi regularly came to the Ganges for her bath. On her way back home, she would carry a jug of water to wash the steps of the Nahabat where the mother would sit. Oh, beautiful. Shashi Samanta, a son of a temple official, wrote, "One day I asked Golapi why she was washing that place. She replied, 'Sir, the mother lived here for a long period and blessed us. I washed this spot where she sat. This will do me good for my next life.' I was dumbfounded observing her devotion." Golapi told 2 stories about the mother. Once my husband was suffering from fever. There was no hope for his life. The Ayurvedic doctor said that he was now in the hands of God. He told me to pray to him. We all began to cry. I was young then. Patal Dasi came and consoled me. That night I was seated near the head of my husband, and I was not fully awake or fully asleep. I heard someone say to me, "Touch this flower offered to Mother Kali to his head." My dream broke. I did not see anyone around. I was scared to think that my husband would die. In the morning, I went to the temple. I entered through the north gate and came near the Nahabat. I saw the mother standing in the veranda with a small bundle in her hand. My goodness, in my dream, I had seen a similar bundle. When I bowed down to her, Mother said, "It is good that you have come. I was waiting for someone from your area who could take this bundle to you. There is a flower offered to Mother Kali in it. Touch it to your husband's head. Let the doctor continue his treatment. There is a piece of rock candy in it also. Make rock candy syrup and give it to your husband." When the mother handed over the bundle to me, I cried and I asked, "Mother, will my husband live?" The mother replied, "My child, birth and death are not in human hands. God knows everything. Pray to him." I touched that flower to my husband's head, and he continued taking that Ayurvedic medicine. His fever was gone within a few days, and from time to time after that, the mother sent some fruits for my husband. See that compassion. I read this, it moves me quite deeply, just because this, I see when I read this, that this is spiritual life. Spiritual life is not japam and meditation and sitting in a shrine and that. Spiritual life is intended to be this, that you care, that you love, that you feel, that you know, and I still don't rise up to that occasion myself, still thinking that here I don't know my neighbors, even though I finally went out to meet them. But that we should raise our awareness, increase our circle of love, become familiar with your neighbors so that you can know when they're not well, when their children aren't well, when their husbands or wives aren't well, so that you can have this opportunity, to care, to worship in a real way with God directly in front of you, the God that you can reach out and touch, the God that you can give a glass of water to, a God that you can worship just by loving someone, in need. That's to broaden our horizons. Ask me, poke me every now and then. Remind me that I can do better in this, and let us all just make our spiritual life, not spiritual practice, spiritual life, where we act from love, we're moved by wisdom, and we produce beauty, compassion, caring in this world. This is what we are. This is what we're for. My aunt came from Midnapur district to see Kali temple of Dakshineshwar and to bathe in the Ganges. One night there was a yatra performance at the Kali temple, and I took my aunt there. On our way, we stopped at the Nahabat, and as I had a desire to introduce my aunt to the mother, we entered the Nahabat veranda. I saw the mother moaning on the floor. She told me that she was suffering from an excruciating stomachache. There was nobody to look after her, and I told her, "Mother, I've brought my aunt to watch the yatra performance at the temple." "Very good," replied the mother. Then we left. I helped my aunt to find a seat in the Nat Mandir to watch the yatra, and then I returned to the Nahabat. I couldn't find the mother there. The room was empty. I presumed that she had gone to answer the call of nature. I began to search for her near the bank of the Ganges and found a kerosene lantern at a distance, which gave me the clue that she must be there. I waited for some time and then went to the light. I saw her lying on the ground. I lifted her up and brought her to her room in the Nahabat. I asked, "Mother, why did you not tell anyone of your condition?" She replied, "Yes, I did. They gave me some medicine in the afternoon." Seeing her condition, I didn't go to the yatra. Instead, I stayed with her. When the yatra was over, I took my aunt home. The next day, I came to see the mother and learned that she was feeling a little better. The Ayurvedic doctors suggested drinking some juice of amrul spinach, an antidote for dysentery. I collected amrul spinach from our garden and took it to her. She took the soup of tankuni spinach that I also gave to her. The mother was very fond of me, and she always gave me something when I visited her. Once, she gave me a bottle of oil and told me, "Golapi, when you use this oil on your head will remain cool. Anger is very bad. Never lose your temper." It was by the grace of the mother that I got rid of my bad temper. When the master became sick, he left for Calcutta for treatment. The day the mother left Dakshineshwar, we all went to see her off and cried. She consoled us, saying, "You have many friends here. May the Lord keep you well." It was the last time that I saw the mother. I really had a great fortune to come in contact with such a great soul.
Now I think of the mother and wait for the day when she will deliver me. Despite her uncomfortable living conditions and occasional
Mercy punches, right? Mercy punches. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Oh boy.
Tell me, am I wrong? Yeah. Wait for it. Hold on. I got something for you. Hold on. There you go. You have a quote.
Yes.
There. See?
Oh, love is
Yeah.
what we are. Yes.
Love is what we're for.
Despite her uncomfortable living conditions and occasional illnesses, Holy Mother considered her time with the Master in Dakshineshwar to be her golden days. Although she had no biological children, she became a true mother to the virtuous and the wicked, the rich and the poor, the literate and the illiterate. Even the weak, the neglected, the unsophisticated, the afflicted, and the low caste women of Dakshineshwar, they found a safe refuge in her, and the mother bound them to her with the cord of motherly love. All right, perfect place to stop for the evening and pick up next week.
So when are you traveling?